You know, sugar. Sometimes it don't take much to send a body tumbling back through time. Sigh, just the other day, I was sitting out on the porch, rocking real slow, and the warm breeze brought the smell of fresh-cut grass and something sweet, like homemade apple pie cooling on the windowsill. Land sakes alive, it hit me like a freight train. Pause. I closed my eyes for just a second, and just like that, I was back in the summer of 1947, barefoot and grinning, running through the fields behind Mama's house, the sun beating down and the cicadas singing their song loud enough to wake the dead. Laugh, back in my day, we didn't have store-bought toys. Lord have mercy, we barely had 2 nickels to rub together. If you wanted something to play with, you had to make it with your own 2 hands, and you'd better be proud of it too, 'cause that's all you were getting. Pause. I've been thinking about those times a lot lately. Maybe it's the world getting so busy, folks always rushing, never slowing down to smell the honeysuckle, or maybe it's just that at my age, you start holding tighter to the things that really mattered. Sigh, you young folks wouldn't understand, but there was something mighty special about making your own fun, about talking a scrap of cloth or a piece of old wood and bringing it to life with nothing but your imagination and a whole lot of hope. Soft laugh. I'll tell you what, there's a story I've been carrying in my heart for years about how we kids made our own toys and games out in the middle of nowhere with nothing but some string, a few nails, and a whole heap of dreams. It's funny, ain't it? How something so small can stick with you for a lifetime. Pause. Some days, when the sun hits just right, I swear I can almost hear little Annie Mae Logan as she showed off the rag doll she stitched from Mama's old apron. Or Billy Joe whittling away at a block of scrap wood, trying to make a toy truck look just like Daddy's beat-up Ford. And Tommy Ray, bless his heart, always rigging up something wild. Once he tied a rope swing way up in the old oak tree and near about broke his fool neck flying off it. Laugh, that we made do with what we had, and Lord knows, we had ourselves a fine time. Sigh, looking back, those dusty afternoons and barefoot races through the fields seem brighter than any shiny toy you could buy in a store today. That was just the way things were back then. Simple, honest, full of wonder. Pause, and I reckon maybe it's time I finally shared those memories proper. Maybe there's a lesson in am still, waiting to be heard. So pull up a chair, darling, and pour yourself a cup of tea, 'cause I got a story to tell you. And who knows? Gentle laugh, by the time I'm through, you might just be wishing for a stick and a ball of string yourself. Now tell me, when's the last time you made something with your own 2 hands, just for the joy of it? Pause, smile, think about that while I take you back to a time when imagination was worth more than all the money in the world. Lord have mercy, it feels like just yesterday, but when I close my eyes, I can still see it clear as a bell. Sigh, I was just a little thing back then, no more'n 7 or 8 years old, running around in a hand-me-down dress 2 sizes too big, with my hair in messy braids Mama tied with scraps of ribbon. Soft laugh, we lived out in the country, way down a dusty road just past Miller's Creek, in a house Daddy built with his own 2 hands, plank by plank. It weren't much, 2 bedrooms, a lean-to kitchen out back, and a big old porch where Mama hung the laundry to dry, but to us, it was a castle. Pause, back in those days, time moved slow, real slow. Folks woke up with the sun, worked hard all day, and come sundown, you'd hear the screen doors slamming and smell suppers cooking all up and down the holler. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was worth more than a king's ransom. I reckon the first time I ever thought about making toys was one hot afternoon, sitting under that old oak tree out back, watching Billy Joe carve away at a chunk of wood with Daddy's pocket knife. Laugh, Billy Joe always had that wild glint in his eye, like he was seeing something nobody else could. He told me he was making a race car, though to me, It looked more like a lopsided potato, but Lord, was he proud of it. Tommy Ray showed up not long after, carrying a ball of twine and a busted-up broom handle, and before I knew it, the three of us were dreaming up whole cities made out of sticks and rocks and whatever else we could find. Pause. Annie Mae was just a tottering after us with her rag doll tucked up under one arm, the one she and Mama stitched together from old apron cloth and some buttons we found in Mama's sewing tin. Sigh, I used to believe, back then, that the world was bigger than anything I could ever imagine, and that kindness was the strongest thing a body could hold on to. I believed if you smiled at someone, they'd smile right back, and if you gave a little, the world would always find a way to give you more. Soft laugh, it wasn't about what you had, it was about what you made of it. That's just how we did it in those days. We didn't sit around wishing for things we couldn't afford. We made do with what we had, and somehow that made everything sweeter. Pause. I used to dream about traveling to the big city, Nashville, maybe, or even Memphis, but truth be told, all I really wanted was to grow up and have a little house of my own, a garden out back, and kids Logan under the same big sky. Sigh, funny how your biggest dreams can be so simple when you're young. We didn't know we were poor. We didn't know we were missing anything. We had each other, and that was enough. Pause. Every afternoon after our chores, we'd run wild through the fields, barefoot, picking blackberries till our hands were stained purple, or playing hide and seek in the tall corn, our laughter floating up into the heavy summer air. Sometimes, when the fireflies came out, Daddy would sit on the porch and play his harmonica, and Mama would hum along, and I'd sit there with Annie Mae curled up against me, thinking there just wasn't a better place on God's green earth. Soft laugh, those were good days. Hard days, sure, but full of so much love and hope it near about makes my heart ache just to think on it. Sigh, and that's where it all began. Darlin' with a little girl, a patch of wild Kentucky land, and a heart full of dreams bigger than the wide open sky. Now, darlin', if you live long enough, you'll find there are days that pass like a slow Sunday afternoon, and then there are days that turn your whole world upside down without so much as a howdy-do. Sigh, I'll tell you what, I never expected one ordinary afternoon to stick with me all my life, but Lord have mercy, it surely did. Pause. It was a sticky summer day, hotter than a billy goat in a pepper patch, and we kids were out back messing around with some scraps of wood Daddy left by the shed. Billy Joe was working on a slingshot, and Annie Mae was trying to tie a bow on her rag doll's hair. Bless her heart. That's when we heard it, the rattle and clank of an old pickup truck rolling down the dirt road, kicking up more dust than a stampede. Pause. It was Mr. Jenkins from down the way, and sitting next to him, squished tight between boxes and socks, was a boy we'd never seen before. Turned out he was Mr. Jenkins' nephew, come up from the city to stay a spell after his folks got sick. His name was Samuel Lee, but we just called him Sam. Soft chuckle. You ever seen something or someone and known deep down they were going to change your life, even if you didn't rightly know how yet? That's how it was with Sam. He had a mop of dark curly hair, a pair of scuffed-up boots, and a grin that could charm the bark off a tree. Pause. I felt my heart thump in my chest something fierce, and Lord help me, I didn't even know why at the time. I just knew something was different. Sigh. Sam jumped down from that truck like he owned the whole world, slinging his rucksack over one shoulder and flashing that crooked smile. He looked around, squinted up at the sun, and hollered, "Y'all got room for one more out here?" Well, Billy Joe puffed up like a rooster, trying to show off, and Annie Mae giggled so hard she near about fell over. And me? Pause. I just stood there, clutching a scrap of wood to my chest, feeling like the ground might give way under my bare feet. Soft laugh. That summer, everything changed. Sam didn't just bring his rucksack. He brought big city ideas, wild stories about airplanes and radios and places where buildings scrape the sky. He taught us how to rig up a kite out of newspaper and twine, and how to carve little whistles from willow branches. He showed us that fun wasn't just sticks and stones, it was imagination, wide as the Mississippi and twice as wild. Sigh, I reckon he was the first person outside our little world who made me think bigger, dream farther. He stirred up something inside me, a hunger. I guess you'd call it to see more, be more, than just a barefoot girl running the same old dirt roads. Pause. That day he arrived, the air felt different somehow. Heavy, electric, like just before a summer storm when you can feel the charge humming in the air. And deep down, though I couldn't have said it plain then, I knew my world was about to grow bigger than I ever dared imagine. Sigh, sugar. Looking back now, I reckon every story worth telling starts with something unexpected. A stranger's smile, a letter in the mail, a knock on the door. Soft chuckle. Sometimes it don't seem like much at the time, but it plants a seed deep down in the soil of your heart. And before you know it, that little seed's growing wild, changing everything you thought you knew. Pause, and Lord have mercy, I was about to learn that some summers ain't meant to last forever, but the memories sure do. Now, darling, life's a funny thing. 1 minute you're riding high, Logan, so hard your sides ache, and the next, the whole world shifts right out from under you. Sigh, that summer with Sam was one of the best times of my life, but looking back, I reckon it was the beginning of the hardest lessons too. Pause, it all started with the drought. Lord have mercy, I ain't never seen the land so dry. The cornfields withered up, the creeks ran low, and Mama's garden, bless her, barely grew enough to fill a single basket. Folks all around us were hoodin'. Daddy did his best to patch up farm equipment for neighbors just to bring home a few dollars, but it wasn't near enough. Sigh, and then one day, Daddy sat us all down on the porch, hat in his hands, face drawn and tired, and said words I never thought I'd hear. We're gonna have to move. Pause, move. That word hit me harder than a cold slap. Move where? This was all we knew. Our house, the fields, the woods, the creek where we caught frogs in the summertime. It was home. Annie Mae started crying right off, and Billy Joe just got that stiff look he always got when he didn't want to show he was scared. But me? Sigh, I didn't say a word. I just sat there, feeling like the world was falling in around me. And Sam, poor Sam, he kicked a rock down the dirt path and didn't look at none of us. Pause, you see, his folks was doing better now, and he was supposed to head back to the city come fall anyway. But we'd built something that summer, dreams, plans, wild schemes, and just like that, it all started slipping through our fingers. Soft laugh, bittersweet. I didn't know how to say it back then, but I was mad. Mad at Daddy for leaving, mad at the sky for staying dry, mad at God for tucking away the one good summer I ever had. Sigh, I didn't want to be mad, that wasn't how Mama raised us, but sometimes your heart just don't listen to what your head's telling you. Pause, the days after that were a blur. Mama packed up what little we had, folding clothes into apple crates and wrapping dishes in old newspaper. Daddy sold off the cow and the mule, and each thing that left our little farm felt like losing a piece of myself. Sigh, Sam tried to cheer me up. Bless him. He built me a little wooden music box out of scrap wood and old watch parts. It didn't play nothing, mind you, but when you opened it, there was a tiny carved heart inside. Pause. I wanted to thank him, to hug him tight and tell him he meant more to me than any OL city dream, but I couldn't find the words. I was too proud, too hurt, and deep down, too scared to say goodbye. Sigh, you young folks might not believe it, but sometimes pride's heavier than a sack of rocks, and it'll weigh you down if you ain't careful. Pause. In those last few days before we left, I'd find myself wandering out to the old oak tree, sitting in the dirt, just staring at the swing we'd rigged up, twisting in the breeze. I remember praying under my breath, asking God to send rain, to fix everything, to let me stay a little longer. But no rain came, no miracles, just the steady tick of time marching us forward whether we were ready or not. Sigh, and so, with heavy hearts and tear-streaked faces, we loaded up the old pickup, and I watched through the dusty window as my whole childhood faded away behind me. Pause, it's funny. I thought leaving would be the hardest part, but truth be told, it was carrying the silence inside me, all the words I didn't say, all the goodbyes I swallowed, that hurt the most. Sigh, and right then, sitting cramped in the back of that truck, I learned that sometimes the things you don't say, they stay with you longer than the things you do. And Lord help me, that was a lesson I'd carry in my bones for the rest of my days. I'll tell you, sugar, sometimes in life, things happen so fast, you don't even have time to catch your breath. It was the summer after we moved, when everything seemed like it was just shuffling through, one day after the next, like pages in a book you didn't really want to read, but couldn't put down. Sigh. Daddy was working at the mill, Mama had taken in some laundry to make ends meet, and Billy Joe was running wild with the neighborhood boys, as usual. Pause, but me? I was wandering, lost in the crowd, trying to pretend like it didn't hurt. We'd been living in that small house near the edge of town for a couple months, and while the roof was over our heads, the rest of us felt like strangers in a new world. Sigh, then came that one night. Pause, the sky had turned this weird shade of purple, like it was holding its breath, and the air felt thick, like it was about to burst. We were all sitting around the dinner table, eating what we could, when the door opened, and in walked Mama. Pause now. Normally she'd be smiling, asking us how our day had been, but tonight, well, there was something about the way she walked in, like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She didn't say a word at first, just stood there, her hands trembling a bit, and when she spoke, pause, my heart stopped. Your daddy, she said, her voice quieter than a whisper, he's gone. Sigh, I can still hear those words today, like they echo in my head every time I think on it. It wasn't just the shock or the tears that followed. It was the fact that in that moment, my whole world, the one I had so carefully put together after the move, just cracked. Pause, I didn't understand at first. How could I? Daddy had always been strong, always the one to fix things when they were broken, always the one to hold us all together. Soft laugh, bitter. But when you're young, you think people are invincible. You think you can count on them forever, even when you know deep down you can't. Sigh, I remember standing there, not knowing whether to scream or cry, or even if I could do either. Pause, and then, as I turned to look at Billy Joe, his face so pale, his hands gripped tight around his glass of water. Pause, I knew that we'd lost more than just our father. We lost a part of us that we couldn't get back. The rest of that night, I don't remember much. I remember the sound of Mama crying, the thud of my boots on the floor as I ran out the door, and the chill of the air hitting me like a slap. Sigh, I think I ran for hours, or maybe it was only minutes, but all I could hear was my own breath and the sound of my heart beating so loud, like it was trying to make sense of the world all by itself. I remember standing under the same old oak tree, the one we had all gathered round when things were simpler, and just staring up at the sky. Pause, it was then I realized that even though Daddy was gone, even though the world had crumbled all around me, I still had a choice. I could let the darkness swallow me whole, or I could stand tall and carry on the way he would have wanted. Pause, I won't lie to you, darling, I was scared. Soft laugh, I was so scared that the ground would open up and swallow me too. I didn't think I could keep going, but I did. Sigh, I remember that night more than any other, The way the world seemed to freeze. The way my heart didn't quite feel right for a long time after. And how, somehow, by the grace of God, I found the strength to keep going. Pause. It wasn't the same after that. It could never be. But I learned something that night. That sometimes life just keeps talking from you, but you have to keep giving back to it. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when you don't know how you're gonna make it. Sigh, and I think that was the night I truly became who I am today. Pause. It wasn't about how strong you were anymore. It was about how much you were willing to fight for what was left and for the memory of what you'd lost. You know, darling, there's a funny thing about pain. It's like a storm that comes out of nowhere, tearing everything apart. And then when it's gone, it leaves a kind of emptiness behind that you can't fill. Pause. I didn't know it at the time, but after Daddy passed, I wasn't just changing on the outside. Something deep inside me was different. I had to learn to breathe without him, to carry on without him, and Lord, that was harder than any field I ever plowed. Sigh. It didn't take long for me to realize that the world didn't stop turning just because I was hurt. People still had to eat, still had to work. Mama cried herself to sleep some nights, and the rest of us just, well, we just kept going. Pause. At least, I did. I couldn't show Em how lost I felt. I couldn't let Em see that I didn't know how to keep going without Daddy. Sigh. I spent those days in a haze. I'd wake up every morning and do what had to be done, but each step felt like I was moving through mud, like the weight of the world was pressing down on my chest. The house was quieter, emptier, with just Mama and me and Billy Joe and Annie Mae. No more laughter in the kitchen, no more stories around the fire at night. Just silence, thick and heavy. Pause. I remember walking through the house, my hand touching the furniture, the walls, like I was looking for something that used to be there, but wasn't anymore. And that's when it hit me. Everything I thought I knew, everything I thought was solid, was gone. Sigh. The world had changed, and I hadn't yet figured out how to live in it. Pause. Sam wrote a letter once, sent it from the city. He told me about the lights, the noise, how everything was so different. But I couldn't bring myself to write him back. What did I have to say? How could I explain that the world had shrunk for me? How could I tell him that all I wanted was the way things used to be, when we were all together, when everything felt like it had a place? I didn't know how to talk about that kind of loss. Pause. I kept busy. Mama needed me, Billy Joe needed me, and Annie Mae, she needed someone to show her that the world wasn't always dark. But in my heart, I felt like I was just going through the motions, not really living. Sigh. I remember one cold winter night, after we'd had supper and the fire was burning low, I sat on the old couch, looking at the fireplace. It was quiet again, too quiet. And that's when it hit me. Pause. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I couldn't keep holding the pieces of a life that was already broken. Sigh. That was the moment I realized I wasn't the same person I used to be. I wasn't that bright-eyed girl with big dreams anymore. No. Now I was the one who carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. I was the one who had to find a way forward, even if I didn't know how. Pause. And that's when I understood that sometimes you just gotta sit with the hurt. You gotta let it wash over you, feel it, and then you find a way to stand back up again. Sigh. It took a long time, and I don't know if I'll ever really be the same, but somewhere along the way, I found my way back. Not to the person I was before, but to someone new, someone stronger. Pause. I don't have all the answers, darling. I don't even know if I ever will. But I learned that life isn't about avoiding the storm, it's about learning how to stand in the rain. And sometimes when the world feels like it's falling apart, you just gotta keep going, even if you don't know where you're headed. Sigh. That's what I learned, and that's what I carry with me now. A little bit of sadness, a little bit of peace, and the knowledge that even after everything changes, you can still find your way back to the light. You know, darling, sometimes the hardest part of moving forward is just taking that first step. Pause after Daddy died, after everything seemed to come apart at the seams. I couldn't help but wonder if I'd ever find a way back to living again. Sigh, but life's funny, isn't it? It has a way of surprising you, especially when you least expect it. I think sometimes it's the small things that give you that little spark when everything feels dark. Pause. It was a cold morning. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it feels like a lifetime ago, when I heard a knock on the door. Now, it wasn't uncommon for folks to stop by, but this time, it was different. Pause. It was Mrs. Miller from down the road. She had a basket of fresh eggs in her hand and a smile that seemed like it could light up the whole world. Laugh, she asked if she could sit with me for a spell, and I said, why not? Though truth be told, I wasn't feeling much like company. Pause, but there's something about the way Mrs. Miller listens. She don't judge, she don't rush. She just lets you talk, lets you feel what you need to feel, and somehow that always makes you feel just a little bit lighter. Sigh. We sat there for a long while, mostly quiet, and every now and then she'd ask me a simple question like, how are the kids, or how's the garden doing? Laugh, simple things. But after a while, she said something that I'll never forget. She said, you know, Ellie, sometimes life's all about starting over. And when you're ready, the world will be here, waiting for you to try again. Pause. Those words hit me like a splash of cold water to the face. Sigh, starting over. That was something I hadn't even thought about. I mean, sure, I was surviving. I was getting by. But starting over? It was like I was still too stuck in what I'd lost to even think about what I could gain. Pause, but I thought about it all night long. And in the quiet of my room, with the soft hum of the wind outside, it was like a little light flickered inside me, a tiny spark of something new, something hopeful. Sigh. I woke up the next morning with a thought in my mind, one I hadn't had in a long time. Maybe I wasn't done yet. Pause. The days after that felt different somehow. I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do, but I started small. I helped Annie Mae with her sewing, taught her how to make a new dress for her rag doll, something she'd never done before. And let me tell you, when she smiled and held up that doll like it was the finest thing she'd ever seen, I felt a warmth inside me I hadn't felt in a long time. Pause. It was a little thing, but it was a step. I knew then that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't too far gone to start something new. Sigh. It wasn't long after that I found myself sitting on the back porch, thinking about what I could do for myself. I'd always loved to bake, even before all the heartache. So one day, I decided to try again, to make something simple, just for me. Pause. I mixed the flour, sugar, and butter, and before long, the smell of fresh bread filled the house. And that was when I realized I wasn't just making bread. I was making myself whole again, one little step at a time. Sigh. It wasn't easy, but I didn't expect it to be. And it wasn't perfect. Lord knows, it wasn't perfect. But I was trying. I was moving forward, even if it was just a little bit at a time. And you know, darling, sometimes that's all you can do. Pause. As the weeks went on, I found myself taking on more. I started helping others in the community, baking for the church, and teaching young girls in town how to sew. And every time I did, I felt a little more like myself. It was like I was rebuilding the pieces of who I was, not with the same old dreams, but with new ones. And maybe that's the point, darling. Sometimes you have to let go of what's broken, just to make room for what's still possible. Sigh. I can't say I'm completely healed, or that I'll ever forget the loss. But I've learned that life doesn't always give you a clean slate. Sometimes it gives you a mess to work with. And I think, just maybe, that mess is where you'll find your second chance. Pause. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm ready for it. One step at a time, one day at a time. And that's enough for now. You know, darling, I've been thinking a lot about choices lately. The kind of choices that shape you, change you, whether you're ready or not. Sigh, when you've lived long enough, you come to realize that some decisions don't come all at once. Some sneak up on you, slow and steady, and before you know it, you've made your choice without even knowing it. But there comes a time, in every person's life, when you have to make a choice, loud and clear. And that's when you really find out who you are. Pause. It wasn't long after I started trying to put my life back together that I realized something. I'd been holding onto the past like it was a lifeline, when in truth, it was weighing me down. Pause. I'd spent so much time missing Daddy, missing that time we all had together, that I forgot to live for the moments that were right in front of me. I was stuck in the hurt, stuck in the what could have been, and the what should have happened. Sigh, but one day I was sitting on the porch again, watching the sun dip behind the hills, and it hit me. I was tired of carrying all that sorrow, all that guilt, all that anger that didn't belong to me anymore. Pause, and I made a decision right then and there. I chose to let go. Pause. I didn't know exactly how or what it would look like, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't live in the past any longer. It wasn't just about letting go of Daddy or of the farm or of what we lost. It was about letting go of all the things I couldn't change. Sigh. I remember that night like it was yesterday. I stood up and I walked inside the house. I'd kept a box tucked away in the back of the closet, full of letters and keepsakes from a time long gone. Old photographs, ribbons from when we won the county fair, a lock of Daddy's hair. All the little things that kept me tethered to a life I couldn't get back. Pause. I took that box and I walked out to the backyard, to the same oak tree where so many of my memories lived. And I stood there, feeling the wind in my hair, and I made the hardest choice I ever had to make. Pause. I let go. I burned the letters, one by one, watching them curl up and turn to ash. I buried the photographs in the dirt where they couldn't hold me anymore. Sigh, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift off me. Pause. It wasn't that I forgot the past. No, darling, that ain't what it was. I'll never forget. Soft laugh, but I chose to stop letting it define me. I chose to stop letting it drag me down, to stop letting it fill me with guilt and regret. Pause. I made a promise to myself that night, a promise to live without the chains of my past, to live without the fear of what I'd lost, and I kept that promise. Sigh. I chose to move forward. I chose to be present for the people I still had, for the life I still had left to live. Pause. It didn't happen all at once. Oh no, life doesn't work like that. But little by little, I started to see the world differently. I started to feel joy again, real joy, the kind that doesn't come from clinging to what was, but from saving room for what could be. Sigh. I can't tell you when exactly it happened, but there came a day when I looked in the mirror and didn't see the woman who lost everything. I saw a woman who'd been through the storm and made it out the other side. A woman who had scars, yes, but also strength. Pause. I chose to forgive myself. And I chose to live. I chose to let the past rest, and to step forward into the future, no matter how uncertain it might seem. Sigh. And now, darling, I can say with a clear heart that I've found peace, not because everything turned out perfect, but because I decided to live with what I had and to make something beautiful out of what was left. Pause. So, if you're ever feeling like you're stuck, like you can't move forward, just remember this. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one to let go. But once you do, you'll find that the world's a little brighter, and the road ahead ain't so hard to walk. Sigh. And that's what I've learned. You have to let go of what weighs you down, and then you'll see that there's a whole new world out there, just waiting for you to step into it. You know, darling, sometimes it's hard to put a finger on exactly when it happens. It's not like one big moment. It's more like 1,000 little moments that build up, like drops of water that slowly shape a stone over time. Pause. When I look back at all that's happened, all I've lived through, it's not the big things that stand out to me. It's the small things, the quiet lessons that I didn't even know I was learning at the time. Sigh, I've come to realize over the years that life is a whole lot messier than we want it to be. Pause. We spend so much time trying to make things perfect, trying to hold on to the way things used to be, that we forget the beauty of what's right in front of us. We think we need more money, more success, more time, more love, but what we really need is more of what we already have. Sigh, I used to think happiness was something you had to chase down, that you could find it if you just worked hard enough, or prayed hard enough, or waited long enough. But darling, I learned that happiness don't come like that. It don't come from what you get, or from what you lose. It comes from how you choose to live, how you choose to see the world. Pause. When I was younger, I always thought the world owed me something, a fair chance, a good life, happiness. But life don't work like that, sugar. It don't owe you nothing. It gives you what it gives you, and you do the best you can with it. Pause. It wasn't until I lost everything, my daddy, my home, my childhood, that I realized what truly matters. It wasn't the things I had or the plans I made. It was the people I loved and the love I gave. It was the moments of grace, the quiet kindnesses, the small acts of courage, the simple joys that made life worth living. Sigh, and that's the thing, darling. You can't control everything. You can't make the storm stop or hold back the rain. But you can choose how you weather it. You can choose to find peace in the middle of the chaos. Pause. I learned that life doesn't always give you what you expect. It gives you what you need even when you don't know it. And sometimes, the hardest things turn out to be the best things, even though you can't see it at the time. Sigh, you know, it took me a long time to figure out that the things we think we want, the things we think will fix us, are often the things that hold us back. Pause. I spent so many years holding onto what was lost, to the past, to the way things used to be, that I forgot to look at what was right in front of me. I forgot to see the new opportunities, the new beginnings, the people who were still with me. Sigh, and that's the lesson I want to share with you, darling. Sometimes you have to let go of the life you thought you wanted, to make room for the life you were meant to have. Pause. So, maybe it's time you stop waiting. Stop waiting for things to get better, for someone to come along and fix everything. Stop waiting for the storm to pass, 'cause it won't. Life is a mess, and that's okay. But if you learn to accept it, to love it, to live it, you'll find that the beauty isn't in the perfection. It's in the brokenness, in the mess, in the struggle. And when you see that, darling, you'll be free. You'll stop waiting for something outside yourself to change and start changing from within. Pause. I've learned that every day is a gift, even the hard ones. And I've learned that the world don't owe you a thing, but you have the power to make your own peace with it. Sigh. Maybe it's time for you to stop waiting. Start living. Stop looking for the perfect moment, 'cause it might not come. Just take the one you've got and make it yours. Well, darling, I reckon we've come to the end of my story, but it don't feel like the end. Not really. Sigh, you see, stories like these never really end. They just keep going in your heart, long after you've turned the last page. And I suppose that's what life is too. It's never truly over. There's always another chapter, another chance, another day. Pause. I've told you all about my past, about the good times and the bad, about the lessons I learned and the people I loved. But this story, it's not just about me, is it? No, sugar. It's about all of us. It's about the choices we make, the struggles we face, and the strength we find when we didn't even know it was there. Pause. I want you to know that what I've shared with you today isn't just some old memory of a life that's gone. It's about today, too. It's about the way we live now, the way we love now, and the way we choose to move forward, no matter what. Sigh, you see, it doesn't matter how many years have passed. It doesn't matter how much has changed. What matters is what we do with the time we have left. What matters is the people we love and the love we give. Pause, and I guess that's the real question I want to leave you with. It's the one I ask myself every day. I think about it often, especially when I'm sitting on the porch, looking out at the sky. Sigh, do you think true love should come back? Should it come around again, after all these years, when the heart's been broken and the world has moved on? Pause, I wonder sometimes if he remembers. I wonder if somewhere out there he's thinking of me the way I think of him. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Soft laugh, but in my heart I like to think he does. And maybe, just maybe, he's still waiting for me too. Pause, it's funny, darling. Life's full of mysteries like that, things we can never quite understand, things we might never have answers for. But that's okay, isn't it? Maybe the not knowing is part of what makes life so beautiful. Pause, I know that I've lived a good life, even if it wasn't the life I thought I'd have. I know that every choice I made, every step I took, brought me right here. And I wouldn't change a thing. Sigh, so as we close this chapter, I just want you to know life's not perfect, and it's not easy, but it's still worth living. It's worth every tear, every laugh, every moment of grace, even when we don't feel like we deserve it. Pause, I reckon we're all just trying to find our way. And maybe, darling, the most important thing we can do is love what we have, right here, right now, without worrying so much about what's lost or what's still to come. Sigh, so, what about you? What's your story? What are the choices you're making today? What are the dreams you're holding onto? I hope you take a moment to think on that. Pause and remember, even when the road seems long, even when it seems like you've lost your way, there's always a chance to start fresh. A chance to find new light, new love, and new purpose. Sigh, and sometimes, darling, the best part of the journey is the part you're on right now. So take a deep breath, step forward, and know that the story's still going and you're still part of it. Pause, maybe, just maybe, the best chapters are still ahead of you.